October 7th, 2025. Federal marshals storm in to arrest one of reality TV's biggest stars. Heavy D. Sparks, the diesel-loving giant from Diesel Brothers, is hauled into Salt Lake County Jail on contempt charges. The man who built an empire customizing trucks now faces over $800,000 in unpaid fines. But this isn't just about money. It's about years of defiance, court battles, and a legal nightmare that refuses to end. At 40 years old, Heavy D's facing his darkest hour. The question everyone's asking, how did the king of diesel end up behind bars? The warrant came down on October 2nd, 2025. 5 days later, federal marshals weren't taking no for an answer. Dave Heavy D. Sparks, the 6'5" diesel enthusiast with over 4 million social media followers, was booked into custody. The charge? Contempt of court for refusing to pay $843,602 in legal fees. This wasn't his first warning either. Judge Robert Shelby had already found him in contempt back in June 2024. Then again in August, after Heavy D allegedly transferred property to dodge payments. The judge's order was crystal clear: pay up or stay locked up until compliance. For 3 days, Heavy D sat in that cell while his lawyers scrambled. His fans were stunned. The man who fearlessly built monster trucks and flew rescue helicopters was now just another inmate number. But here's what makes this wild. The story behind these charges goes back nearly a decade, and it gets way worse. Back in 2017, everything seemed golden for Heavy D. Diesel Brothers was crushing it on Discovery Channel, and his shops were booming. Then Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment dropped a lawsuit that would change everything. The accusations? Heavy D and his crew were illegally stripping emission controls from diesel trucks, then selling them or showing them off on TV. They called it rolling coal, that thick black smoke you'd see pouring from modified exhausts. Sounds cool, looks aggressive, but here's the problem. It's massively illegal. The physicians group didn't just complain, they bought one of Heavy D's modified trucks and had it tested independently. The results were damning. Without those emission controls, the truck pumped out 36 times more pollutants and 21 times more particulate matter than a stock vehicle. In June 2018, a judge issued an injunction ordering them to stop immediately. Heavy D's defense was simple. These trucks were only for off-road use, perfectly legal. He claimed he was working with the EPA to stay compliant, but the evidence told a different story. March 2020 hit Heavy D like a freight truck. Federal Judge Robert Shelby ruled against him and his Diesel Brothers crew. The total damage? $850,000 in fines for violating the Clean Air Act hundreds of times. But Heavy D wasn't backing down. He appealed, convinced the ruling was wrong. By March 2021, that appeal was crushed. Not only did the court uphold everything, but they added another $928,602 in legal fees owed to the physicians group. Do the math? Heavy D now owed over $1.7 million total. Here's where it gets messy. He didn't pay. Not a single dollar went to the plaintiffs according to court documents. Years passed. The court kept ordering him to provide financial documents, to show his assets, to prove he couldn't pay. He ignored them. In June 2024, the court found him in contempt for the first time. Then in August 2025, they caught him transferring property, which violated the court's freeze on his assets. Second contempt charge. The judge had enough. Either Heavy D complied immediately, or he'd sit in jail until he did. To understand how much Heavy D had to lose, you need to know how far he'd climbed. Born David Sparks on January 5, 1985 in Salt Lake City, he wasn't born rich. His dad served in the military but battled a brain tumor. Heavy D watched his father fight for 21 years before losing that battle. Those struggles shaped him. By high school, Heavy D was obsessed with auto mechanics and welding. After one semester at Weber State University, he dropped out to start his own excavation business. That's where he met David Diesel Dave Kiley at a church singles event. They bonded over diesel trucks and wild ideas. Together, they launched Diesel Sellers, customizing diesel vehicles with increasingly insane modifications. Their YouTube videos went viral. An appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno caught Discovery Channel's attention. Suddenly, Diesel Brothers premiered in 2016. 8 seasons, millions of viewers, and Heavy D became a household name. He married Ashley Bennett in 2010, and they built a family with 3 kids, Charlie, Bo, and Mac. But fame came with scrutiny, and those modified trucks that made him famous would become his downfall. February 2024 dropped a bombshell. While Heavy D owed nearly $2 million in unpaid legal fees, he announced he'd purchased the Nikola Badger program. The price tag? Tens of millions of dollars. Let that sink in. He's dodging court-ordered payments, but somehow has enough cash for a massive vehicle acquisition. The Nikola Badger was supposed to be a hydrogen-electric pickup truck, a joint venture between Nikola Corporation and General Motors. But Nikola's founder, Trevor Milton, got convicted of securities fraud for lying to investors. The project died. Now Heavy D, through his new company EMBR Motors, owned the intellectual property, 2 prototype vehicles, and all related assets. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A man convicted of Clean Air Act violations now owned a zero-emission vehicle program. But here's the shadiest part. Heavy D was longtime friends with Trevor Milton, the convicted fraudster. Nikola made one thing clear in the deal. Milton couldn't be involved in any way. Still, questions swirled. Where did this money come from when he supposedly couldn't pay his legal debts? Something didn't add up. Inside Salt Lake County Jail, Heavy D wasn't some celebrity getting special treatment. He was inmate number whatever they assigned him, wearing the same jumpsuit as everyone else. For 3 days, he waited. His attorneys worked frantically behind the scenes, negotiating with the plaintiffs and the court. On October 9, 2025, Heavy D appeared before the judge for his contempt hearing. During a break, something shifted. The parties met and reached a stipulation. Heavy D would provide specific financial disclosures to the plaintiffs within 10 days. In exchange, the judge ordered his immediate release. He walked out that same day. But Heavy D wasn't staying quiet. He hit social media hard, posting videos and statements. His message was clear. He felt vindicated, not guilty. He called out the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, claiming their lawyers were using dirty tactics. He insisted this wasn't about clean air anymore, but about legal fees spiraling out of control. In one YouTube video titled "The Truth Behind Why I Was Thrown in Jail," he framed himself as a victim of systemic abuse, not a guy dodging legitimate court orders. Here's what Heavy D wants you to believe. He's been unfairly targeted by an environmental group seeking publicity and cash. He claims he's paid hundreds of thousands in actual federal penalties, but that the lawyer fees being demanded are excessive and unjust. His attorney argued he was arrested not for a crime, but for a paperwork dispute. But let's look at the other side. Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment won their case fair and square. Multiple courts, including appeals, ruled that Heavy D violated federal law hundreds of times. He was ordered to pay. He didn't. For over 3 years, he paid nothing to the plaintiffs while continuing to run multiple businesses and make multi-million-dollar deals. When the court ordered him to disclose his finances, he refused. When they told him not to transfer assets, he did it anyway. That's not a paperwork dispute. That's willful defiance. The real issue? Both sides are fighting dirty, using every legal technicality available. Heavy D's playing the victim card while allegedly hiding money. The plaintiffs are squeezing every dollar through aggressive legal tactics. And somewhere in the middle, the truth about clean air and accountability gets lost. Heavy D walked out of jail, but his problems didn't stay behind bars. He's still on the hook for over $800,000 in legal fees, plus whatever else the court decides he owes. The 10-day disclosure deadline has passed. Whether he actually complied remains unclear. His businesses continue operating. Diesel Sellers, Sparks Motors, and now EMBR Motors with the Nikola Badger project. He's still posting YouTube videos to his 4 million-plus followers, still building wild vehicles, still living large. But the legal shadow follows him everywhere. At 40 years old, Heavy D's at a crossroads. Does he finally pay up and move forward? Does he keep fighting and risk more jail time? Or does he find some middle ground that satisfies the court without destroying everything he's built? His family's watching, his fans are watching, and the courts are definitely watching. One thing's certain, this story isn't over. The man who made a career out of pushing engines to their limits is now pushing the legal system to see how far he can go. Eventually, something's got to break.